I think that Arman, the only way I see Arman path to victory is trying to catch him. Because I just think that Islam is just so good. You're not going to out-grapple him. You're not going to out-strike him to a decision. And if it hits the ground, we've seen how Charles almost caught Arman in a couple submissions in that fight. And to me, I think Islam has better jiu-jitsu than Charles in the fight game. We've seen Islam sub Charles. So I think in those spots where Charles was close to finishing the fight, I think that Islam will finish the fight. And I think that Islam is motivated now to, end that narrative of how close that first fight was.
I think Makhachev has probably made as much improvements as Tsarukyan, perhaps more. And the fact that he's been the champ for a little while now, I think just makes him that much more mature and dangerous and composed in this spot. Tsarukyan, though, is one of the few guys who has given a guy like Islam Makhachev trouble when it came to the wrestling department. Can he continue to do that? I'm not sure. But he's certainly going to have to keep this one on the feet, or maybe try to get on top of Islam Makhachev somehow. So it may very well come down to see who the better striker is. And Makhachev has made huge improvements in that realm. We've seen him now land good shots, put together good combinations, and be a threat there. So I have to lean to Islam Makhachev. Is he a minus 400 favorite? I think that's a little generous, but Makhachev still in control here heading into that fight, I think.
I feel like Makhachev is very focused in the ways that he approaches his opponent. He knows how he wins fights. He knows where he's going to be most dominant. And he's also going to look at Tsarukyan and give him the credit for where he's good. It's an interesting one because listening to Tsarukyan, he's talking a lot about the fact that he's working his own wrestling. He feels like he's going to be able to out-wrestle Makhachev and compete with him in that range. And I do certainly think he will be able to an extent defensively, but I feel like Makhachev's still going to be a couple of steps ahead of him. And I do feel like as the fight moves towards the championship rounds, if it gets there, which I think it may well do, the size and strength of Makhachev might start to wear on Tsarukyan a little bit. As I said earlier, he's a very good athlete, Tsarukyan, but I don't necessarily know as he's got that experience or that I don't know necessarily. It's not necessarily like a maturity when it comes to being a human being, but more of a maturity when it comes to being a championship level fighter. I don't know whether he can necessarily pace himself quite as well as he would need to be able to fight hard for 25 minutes. Whereas Makhachev, we know that he can do that.
Both. I've seen Islam in the gym recently. Islam looks phenomenal. He looks phenomenal in sparring. He looks phenomenal in class. He looks like he's in great shape. He doesn't look like I haven't seen him take a deep breath. You know what I mean? I believe Arman is probably in that type of shape as well. But the striking, as far as the striking goes, from the striking that I've seen from Arman, Islam is more technical. He's more technical. He's a little bit more sharp. He leaves fewer openings while he's striking than I believe Arman. I believe Arman extends a little bit more and kind of exposes himself a little bit more in the striking department. I believe this fight is actually going to play out a little bit more on the feet than people would think, because of the exchanges and things like that from last time. Although Islam is not scared of anybody's grappling. He's not scared of anybody's grappling. He believes he's the best grappler in the world. So I believe that he will mix in the takedown whenever it's something that is there, just to control the fight and things like that. But all in all, this is a hard one to predict, hard one to call. But it's hard for me to go against who I believe is the pound for pound best right now in Islam Makhachev.
Arman Tsarukyan came out just recently and he said that he's not fully committed to this sport. That to me is very alarming, and I don't know if he's just trying to dismiss Islam, if he's just being a little bit cocky, or if subconsciously he's already starting to make excuses. Because saying that, yeah, he comes from a wealthy family and they've got helicopters and private jets and all the rest of it, and I'm not necessarily invested in this sport. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying you could make an assumption that that is an insurance policy, that I don't really commit to this. Think of how much better I could be. Because on the flip side, you know, Islam Makhachev is invested in this game. Simple as that. He lives, breathes, and eats it, sleeps it, whatever you want to say.
He beat the oldest guy because they don't have wrestling. But when someone have good wrestling skills, he always have trouble with Gamrot, with me, and it's gonna be again. He have good wrestling skill, but if somebody defends, he have problem also.
Tsarukyan was able to scramble out of positions that most other fighters that have faced Islam have not been able to do. And I think that's what really stood out. And that was his debut on very short notice in Russia, taking on that challenge. And since then, he's got a ton of experience inside of the octagon and has beat some absolute monsters in the lightweight division. But one thing I think people are sleeping on in this matchup in particular is the fact that if Islam wants to stand with him and kickbox, I think he can. I think that's something that really gets overlooked at with Islam Makhachev, is the fact that he's not that bad of a kickboxer. He's powerful. Yeah. I mean, look what he did to Volk.
I always saying for this fight, like I think like 60-40 more like the Arman. I think the Arman win. But also Islam, he's upgrade his style, his upgrade his striking, his wrestling and grappling also like in another level. But he's upgrade a lot his striking. Before, when I watch like 2 fights before him, I think oh, this guy on the striking not too good. But right now when I watch him, he upgrade a lot.
Just good, like he just maintains that distance like real well, and obviously like I was saying before, it's between the two fighters. It's whoever covers the space has the difficult time. The difficult task is covering the space, whereas Islam is never really the one to cover the space, and that's why it's very hard to hit the guy, because he's always the one like standing there, and you know if you're the one that covers the space and tries to hit him, like he'll counter or shoot. Like, so he's a guy that maintains distance very well. Yeah, like he has a very patient style of fighting.
If you had to pick, who's your money on?
If I had to pick,
draw. Come on, baby.
But like he's a pound for pound fighter, and you know, I'm just gonna prepare like the best version of Islam Makhachev. I'm not gonna like underestimate him or Dustin can defend his wrestling. I'm gonna defend as well. So, but like I'm gonna do my work, and I know what I gotta do.
You know, you've been doing great, but let's keep it real. You're in a huge fight. We're both in a huge fight. I don't underestimate Arman. He's a hell of a competitor and hell of an athlete, you know. So we got a hell of a challenge in front of us. But I do believe that Islam is going to be superior in any area that Arman exposes for us to take advantage of. He's ready to go. We're ready to go. Islam has never looked better. You know, this is the best he's ever looked, you know. So I can honestly say that the Islam you saw against Dustin is not the Islam you're going to see against Arman. It's going to be a much better a fighter going around. He's improved just a teeny bit, and for a person that's regarded as pound for pound number one, there's not big improvements they can make, only little ones, and he has made those little improvements.
Honestly, I agree with coach. He don't have any weakness, but if I want to see his weakness, I have to go very deep, you know. And Arman have everything. That's why he's a real contender, number one in our division right now. And I push myself last 3 months very hard for this fight, because I know I have real contender who want to take my belt, and I don't want to give him any chance.
That's all right. It is a fantastic card. To be honest with you, it's a good card. You got Kevin Holland taking on the new kid that just beat Gerald Meerschaert. You got Yuri Prohaska taking on Jamal Hill, Hanaito Moicano taking on Bernil Dariush, Merab Dvalishvili taking on Umar Nurmagomedov, and Arman Tsarukyan taking on Islam Makhachev. I'm excited.